Happy Valentine's Day. And
Hey,
today we have a special episode of One Work, Five Questions with Donna Vitek, that's me, and Dr. Mark Andrew Holowchak, and
that is I.
that's Maholo over there,
That's it.
who can't figure out how to change his name.
No, I don't. I'll figure it out some point. These things come
Oh,
come slowly, but they do come. I don't have an ashtray for my cigar butt here, so
uh-oh.
yeah.
Oh no, get a cup. You have a plastic cup.
No, I don't. Nothing better than to have a partial cigar before one work and before a big workout that I have right after this in the gym.
Oh wow. Oh, okay. Maybe that should be our Valentine's episode, watching you work.
You want to see an old fart hit? Well, actually, I for an old fart, I'm very, 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 very strong.
Yeah.
As I shared on, I just did dips with for my old age, 100 pounds around my waist for 10 reps. So I have
Oh
very
wow.
powerful. So I can rock in the gym. I've always been able to rock.
So don't mess with Dr. Holowchak.
Readers don't know in 19 or listeners don't know in 1992 I was the strongest drug-free power lifter in Michigan. A
Wow.
long time ago, but anyways, let's get back to
Okay.
Valentine's. I agree with. I hope that all of our viewers here that each person has someone with whom they can share a brunch or lunch or dinner or something, or a nice walk along the river or something. So we're going to
Oh,
talk about
well, that,
Jefferson today being in love.
wow. Yeah, this is going to be a fun topic to talk about. Thomas Jefferson's head and heart letter to Maria Cosway, dated the 12th of October, 1786. And to think of him in love is, wow.
In love, and this is not his wife after his wife has died.
Oh, okay. How long had his wife been gone when he fell
Well,
in love?
she dies in what, 1782. He's a couple of years later, he's going to France. And so it's a few years after.
Okay, and that doesn't count as one of our questions.
No.
So what do we have here, Dr. Holowchak? Thomas
Well,
Jefferson's
it's my
notes.
new book. It's Thomas Jefferson. It's a critique, a critical commentary in some sense. I started the book out as an edition of Notes on Virginia, where we have Jefferson's book included in a running commentary. And I realized that the running commentary became so enormously large that it assumed the form of a prolegomena, and I'd have to write a book. And I might as well just skip the Notes on Virginia and write prolegomena.
I had to look up that word.
I still don't know what it means, but I like the sound because if I can write a prolegomena, it makes me a prolegomenist.
Oh, okay.
Pretty cool to add to your CV,
Yes.
right? Holowchak prolegomenist.
Oh, I'm going to add that as my skills.
All right.
Well, I like that that this cover, and I like that you added it because it actually has something to do with one of our questions, one of my questions that I have, and we'll get to that, and I'll put this back up when we get to that question. Um, so, what do we have here, Dr. Holowchak?
Well, this is where they meet, right?
Oh, that's my first question. So
Okay,
I want to
then
know how they met. How
well, I
Thomas
asked I asked you to put up this picture because okay, your first question is what?
How did Thomas Jefferson meet Maria Cosway?
Okay, I have to give readers. I have a book on this, and it'll come out this year sometime. It's not yet published, but it's a great book. I really had so much fun writing this because I'm interested in Jefferson's, the romantic Thomas Jefferson. Now, Jefferson was in Paris in 1784 as the minister plenipotentiary. And he bumps into, while he's in London, he bumps into John Trumbull, who's a young American artist, a painter.
Right.
And
Right.
he invites Trumbull to come to Paris and stay with him and become the painter of the American Revolution. You didn't know there was such a thing.
Wow, what a job.
So he actually in some sense, convinces Trumbull to try to earn a living by painting scenes of the American Revolution. Why is that important? Well, they didn't have cell phone cameras at the time. So you had to have a drawing or a painting of a figure or an event to
Right.
get some idea, and if readers are well aware, listeners are well aware that in a painting, like in a drawing, you can express so many different things, right? If you're talented as an artist. So anyways, through Trumbull, the date is August 6th, 1786. August 6th. Checking it out here. They are going to, which is the grain market. They see this Hall of Bless. Now, what's great about it? Jefferson is just in awe of this. It's got a dome, right? Now, why is that important? Because it's not easy to make a dome,
Right.
especially at the time. So he's remarking the architectural wonder of this thing. And then Trumbull and Jefferson bump into Maria Cosway and her husband, Richard.
Oh, and her husband.
Her husband, and now this is a marriage of convenience. Richard was
Aren't they all?
he was a talented artist, especially miniatures. He often painted pornographic miniatures. He became the painter in residence to the Prince of Wales, who was a known degenerate. The Prince of Wales, he was the son of the King George at the time, the one with whom Jefferson came and had the problems with the Declaration and the Sun Review. So she is married to this. She gets married to her father dies. Let me go back a little bit, give you a little background. Her father, she's British. They move to Florence, Italy, and he establishes an inn. He winds up having 3 inns. And, being an innkeeper is not the most reputable job at the time, right? You're dealing with profligates, rogues, degenerates. But what her father does is he has a sort of high scale inn that is that privileges British visitors to Italy. Most of the inns in Italy at the time were really dirty, disgusting. So he's got a relatively clean inn with British food, one that's very highly accommodating to British visitors. So you get la crème de la crème, try saying that again, of all the British people coming to visit. But still, this is, it's a degenerate lifestyle. And Maria, very young, is exposed to a lot of debauchery, a lot of drinking and swearing, and, some share presumably whoring around. And it's not the best environment for a young child. Now, I should add what I missed. I'm be a little verbose here, but it's more important here. Maria is one of 6 siblings. And while she's there in Italy, there's a nurse that tends to her and her 6 siblings. Now, the nurse, let me see how many, she winds up poisoning 4 of Maria's siblings.
Oh.
And she's ready and kills them. And she's ready to poison Maria. Maria tells us in a letter to, I think it's a cousin of Richard Cosway, her husband, late in life after Jefferson dies. And she says about the nurse, she goes, "I have sent forth to heaven and I hope to send you also." That's what Maria's recollection.
Wow.
So they finally, you wonder, how is it you haven't figured out something's wrong? That talks about the sort of craziness of an inn. So they discover that this nurse is insane, and she gets thrown in jail, and Maria eventually gets thrown into a convent. Now, this will be more for next Sunday when we're talking about this again. We'll finish up on Maria Cosway. But notice, as I say this in my book, no one's really talked about this before other than me. You have these 2 polarizing influences, right? Drinking, whoring, and laughing and fun at the end, and the quiet, cloistered life, right? That Maria has at the convent. And in some sense, she comes to love this life at the convent, but there's also this longing for, you're introduced to both. And I suspect, and I say this in my book, which includes some of Maria's pictures, you see this tension in her art. It's like she has these very angelic and holy people, calm and peaceful, but there's this devilish look, or they're about to do something devilish. So there's this constant tugging in Maria's life between good and evil, between having fun and sitting back and loving God and wanting to go to heaven versus, as I say it, yeah, sure, I want to go to heaven. I want to have a little bit of fun first. And so she has, I'll say this, we can get to the next question. She has this dream while she's in the convent, and she is being taught, she's exposed to art. Maria will become a talented painter, very talented, one of the most talented female painters in Europe.
Wow.
Probably the second most.
Oh, wow.
And she's exposed to Violante Siria Serrati, and she tells this painter who's teaching her, art techniques and everything, tells her a dream. She goes, I was playing in a vast hall with some of my friends, Brita says, and I saw the ceiling open, and out of the clouds, the Virgin appeared with the child. They descended to earth and started to lift me up, but then they returned me again. And so again, you get this tension, lifting me up to heaven, taking me away, maybe like taking me to the convent, bringing you back down to earth. Then Maria says, I fell back asleep, and then the same Virgin came and lifted me up to heaven forever. Now, I play around with these dreams more in my book. I don't talk about it, but she's exposed to art through Serrati. She gets exposure to art through Johann Zoffany, and she decides to make a career of art. She becomes a very talented artist. She's a great painter and sketcher. And she is not only plays the harpsichord in music, she writes her own music.
Oh, wow.
So one could understand, remember Jefferson's wife played the harpsichord, had a beautiful singing voice. So she probably reminds Jefferson a little bit of his wife.
Right.
This bell is used to high society, not Virginian bucolic society. That's a little background, kind of interesting, right?
Well, that seems to be his taste in females, that artsy types.
Artsy, but this one is a high society sort of a woman who has a streak of the devil in her. No reason to think his wife was like that or any. So, you know how sometimes intellectual people, I don't know if you know her, but sometimes people are drawn to opposites.
Yeah.
She's intellectual like he is in some sense, but she's artsy at least, but yet she's high society, he's country. She likes to hang around famous people and be seen, and Jefferson is sort of indifferent to that.
Yeah, a country bumpkin. No.
A little bit of one, right? Interesting background. Now you know a little bit. We'll talk more about this next time.
Oh, okay. Question number 2. At some point, he seems to be inviting Maria Cosway to come to America and visit him at Monticello. Is he trying to lure the artist Maria to America by pointing out all of the beautiful sites available to paint?
Yes, he is. He's
I would say so.
He's in love with her. He falls in love. He as I said, they met in October, in August 6th, and by the time of this letter, as you see at the beginning of the letter, he said October 12th. He sends them off to Saint Denis, and they're on their way home. And Jefferson's heart is broken. And he doesn't. If you read the intro, I won't go through the introduction. Readers can access it. Please, listeners, go to this letter. It's to me, the most exciting, intriguing thing Jefferson has ever written.
Yeah.
Maybe they're not most important, but for me as an historian, and as a bit of a psychoanalyst, I've written several books on psychoanalysis. It tells me more about Thomas Jefferson to the core than anything else he's ever written.
And that's funny because to me, as a romantic, hopeless romantic, I don't know how he's ever attracted any woman.
Well, hold on to that thought.
Okay.
because after he writes this letter, Cosway's first reaction is going to be, what the?
Oh, like me, like my first reaction.
Yes, we'll see that. We'll talk about that next week. We'll save that for next week. But her response is going to be, she's going, of course, any woman or any person, I should say, is going to be excited about someone who's going to write this enormously long letter and pay all that attention to you. But he's already, he's played all of his cards, as it were, and he's done it too much, too fast, and Maria's going to be overwhelmed. Now, I will add that he writes this with his left hand. And the camera looks like mine, but his left hand.
So he's right-handed. Oh.
He fractures his right hand because they've been together so often after they first meet. Husband's busy painting the royal family or something. And he tries to impress her or something, and he jumps over a hedge, falls down, and fractures or breaks his right hand. Wrist never heals. So he writes the whole damn thing with his left hand, which tells you more that it's so long, he's in pain, and he's writing this with his left hand.
Wow. Oh, that makes it a little more meaningful.
You said something about coming to America. Yeah, I'm trying to find the passage here. Yeah, he said, you find those objects, you saw the cover of my book. That's Jefferson's Natural Bridge, which he owned. That book's coming out shortly. My book on Jefferson Natural Bridge. And he said, where can you find objects like you could find in America for practicing your art?
Right.
Because the falling spring, the cascade of Niagara Falls, in other words, the passage of the Potomac through the Blue Mountains, the Natural Bridge. It is worth a voyage across the Atlantic to see those objects, much more to paint and make them, and thereby ourselves known to all ages. Why not just say, come and see the Natural Bridge? You notice people miss this, but he's pointing out several objects. Why several?
Right.
Why not one?
To entice her.
Well, not only to entice her, but if there's just a natural bridge, you're going to paint the natural bridge. Say, well, time to go home.
Right.
Well, you got Niagara Falls next. You've got, it's got to take a long time. Then he goes, in our own dear Monticello, whereas nature spread so rich a mantle under the eye, mountains, forests, rocks, rivers. With what majesty do we ride above the storms? When it's raining, we don't even get the rain because we're so high, just like the gods. How sublime to look down into the workhouse of nature, to see her clouds, hail, snow, rain, thunder, all fabricated at our feet. And the glorious sun, when rising as if out of a distant water, just gliding on the tops of mountains and giving life to all nature. I hope in God no circumstance may ever make either seek an asylum for. So Monticello is like being on Mount Olympus. Maria, come visit. You're going to stand up like a god among people and see this majestic, this sublime the sublimity of nature from this perch here. So yes, he's inviting her to come visit, and the more things to paint, the greater the enticement, hopefully, and the longer her stay. So good question.
So ladies, this is how a man behaves. So keep this in mind.
How Thomas Jefferson behaves.
Yeah. Question number 3. Why does Jefferson choose a debate to try to tell Maria Cosway that he loves her?
Well, Scott, I've written on this, I don't know how many times. My book, Thomas Jefferson Moralist, I talk about Jefferson. I have a whole chapter on this. And now I have a whole book on Jefferson Maria Cosway will be coming out. But I've written on this in several works. I don't consider it a debate. A lot of people call it a debate, but you get this back and forth argument between head and heart. Now, what is head? Head is intellect.
Mm-hmm.
Head is also what people miss, the philosopher Epicurus. Epicurus is a sort of a consequentialist philosopher who argues that before you make any decision with moral consequences, weigh the pros and cons.
Mm-hmm.
And if there are not more pros, don't do it. And so head is going to represent Epicurus, whom Jefferson, cites a lot and had tremendous, for whom he had tremendous respect. Heart represents Jefferson's moral sense, the moral part of Jefferson, where and he's going to say heart, as I've shown in several writings, most scholars get this wrong, is not really moved at all by rationality, because heart senses things just like your eyes, you see. You don't need your intellect to tell you when you see something that you're looking at something. I know it, I see it. I don't need intellect to tell me you're looking at something. You just see. So, Jefferson will say in many places that, when intellect involves itself in affairs of morality, affairs of heart, it always, he says it here, he says it does so wrongly and it screws things up. So we have head and heart, and trying to think here, is there anything else to add? So I don't see it as a debate, because you have this interplay back and forth where heart says things like, do not bite at the bait of pleasure till you know there is no hook beneath it. The art of life is the art of avoiding pain. That is perfectly Epicurus. What is happiness? Eschewal of pain, Epicurus says. Clearly, and scholars miss this. Some scholars said heart is Epicurus. Head is Epicurus. This is the perfect recipe. I should teach Epicurus as a philosopher. Not only taught him, I wrote a chapter in the book about Epicurus. Do not, the art is avoiding pain. He is the best pilot who steers clearest the rocks and shoals with which he is beset. Pleasure is always before us, but misfortune is on our side. While running after that, this arrests us. In other words, Epicurus would always argue, never go out and actively seek pleasure, because you'll always find pain. Avoid pain to have pleasure. So ataraxia in Greek for Epicurus. Avoidance of pain makes me happy, right? It's not an exciting roller coaster happy, but Epicurus would say, consider the person who goes out and actively seeks pleasure. Well, I'm going to go out and have a few beers. Well, what happens?
Right.
Tell me, what happens? You have a few beers?
Too much pleasure, you do bad things.
You do bad things, you wind up, someone gets pregnant, or you get drunk and fall down, or something stupid happens.
Get a DUI.
Get a DUI. And, so you don't do that. Just figure, when you're hungry, Epicurus always talked about avoidance of sex, believe it or not. He says, when you're hungry, bread and water. Notice we have the word Epicurean today, meaning someone who likes good foods and wines. Well, that's not what Epicurus advocated at all. So our use of the word Epicurean is perfectly inconsistent with the philosopher Epicurus. So it's not a debate. I say that because if you look at the text, the last word, we get this very long bit by head, admonishing, remonstrating against heart, and then heart comes in and says, just get out of my face. And heart goes on and talks and talks and talks. I think that in this quote unquote debate, what other people call it, what heart is doing is sort of tolerating. Heart needs to vent to get clear on what's going on. I'm feeling all this, I'm overwhelmed by it, and I sort of need to vent. So I'm going to tolerate head, and I'll vent with head. And head's just talking, and I really am not listening to a damn thing head's saying, because it doesn't make any sense. Head doesn't understand matters of the heart. But I have someone who is not so good listener, at least, instead of nobody. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think if you read it in that light, you'll find, and you find sometimes when you do scholarship, you're not looking for something and you find something.
Yeah.
And I found the nature, this divided empire passage, which I've used often to understand Jefferson's moral sense faculty and Jefferson's head. Now, a lot of people think Jefferson this is another mistake, other than religious mistakes people have. Jefferson was a complete rationalist. No, he wasn't. He fumbled around more from his moral sense than he did from his head. That is consistent with the empiricist people like David Hume and Lord Keynes. He says, when nature assigned us the same habitation, she gave us over it a divided empire. To you, head, she allotted the field of science, to me that of morals. Again, evidence. When the circle is to be squared, right? Calculus, or the orbit of comet is to be traced, when the arch of greatest strength, if I want to make a doorway that's arched and I want to make it strong, or the solid of least resistance is to be investigated, take up the problem. It's yours. Nature has given me. Don't, but think about those things. What is he talking about? Are there things that you're doing in everyday life? Squaring the circle. Are you planning on doing that sometime today?
No.
Are you going to trace the path of a comet today?
No.
These are all highly mathematical problems that really have very little application in everyday life. The things that are the realms that are entirely dedicated to head are not practical matters. People, scholars have missed that. I am literally the only person in the world has noticed this, that and consistent with David Hume and other people, that had rationality is just not that important for Jefferson. We need a small amount to do mathematics for our grocery bills, to make sure we're not cheated when we're buying stuff, and to plow our fields. But that's a small amount, right? But for the most part, the big problems of head don't concern most people. Then he says, in a like manner, in denying to you the feelings of sympathy, of benevolence, of gratitude, of justice, of love and friendship, she has excluded you from their control. She has adopted the mechanism of the heart. Morals were too essential to the happiness of man to be risked on the uncertain combinations of the head. A lot of people have argued that when Jefferson's talking about his moral sense, the final say is given the head. These moral computations, and then we think, we feel our way through, and then head says yes or no, and then we act. Well, that's what happens sometimes. But Jefferson is arguing here, when we do that way, we make mistakes.
Well, I can't wait to ask question number 5, but we still haven't.
Follow your feeling. Follow your feeling. Head gets in the way when we have a moral decision.
Yeah.
When I'm thinking about, do I help this old lady with money or whatever, you don't calculate like Epicurus used to do. You don't think, okay, is there more good or bad? Once you do that, you miss, you lose. It's not moral.
Right.
Pretty cool stuff. And I love it.
Yeah, it is. It really is. I think
finding something you weren't looking for. That's what I'm always excited about when I do Jefferson.
Yeah. And this is definitely it. I guess
my little cigar butt keeps going. Is that a bad sign for Valentine's Day?
You're not supposed to be smoking.
Well, I have a big workout after this.
That's, oh my goodness, but your veins, what that's doing to your blood vessels, and then you're going to work out?
Opening them up.
Oh. Okay. Question number 4.
And by the way, we hope our viewers will send Valentine's greetings to our lovely co-host here for Valentine's Day. She makes the show go. I'm not convinced that anybody's watching this to see me, but
yeah, Jennifer Aniston is.
Well, okay, I'll take that.
Yeah, she's all the views. Well, we only have 10 minutes left, so I want to get on to question number 4 because we still have question number 5, and I think I know the answer now from listening to what you just said. Question number 4: why is Jefferson's head so convinced he's leading himself towards heartbreak?
Well, see, I've already answered this. And maybe the last question too I'd have answered, who knows? But I mean, it's just head is so convinced. Head is really, it's like when you're involved in a relationship sometimes, for Valentine's Day, you're thinking, I'm not saying Jefferson is right. I'm not a moral sense theorist myself. I am a stoic and I think things through. So Holowchak in a relationship is going to be thinking like head thinks. Let's weigh all this stuff. Jefferson says, Holowchak, you're just wrong here. You feel your way through it. So the question was, he's leading because, do not bite. What does he say? Do not bite at the hand, bait of pleasure till you know there's no hook. Yeah. Wait till you find out there's no hook, then you can bite. So
do you think it was because she was married? Like maybe his head was like, you're never going to have her because she's already.
And I'll say that, and I'm glad you asked that. It was a marriage of convenience. He was not a very handsome man, very short, very unattractive. He was called by other artists a monkey because he resembled a monkey. He was called a macaroni.
Oh,
And people don't know what a macaroni is. A macaroni is someone who hangs around Britain and is dressed like he's an Italian fop. So he's walking around. And Richard, because he was very unattractive, very small, very non-masculine, would try to compensate by dressing elaborately to draw attention to himself. And of course, this had the secondary benefit of attracting clients to him. Well, of course, the guy dresses like a buffoon and a bit of a clown, but he's an artist, right? And the Prince Regent himself has him as his personal artist. So he's buffering himself against heartbreak because there is heartbreak in life, right? And so I think Head is trying to do the best they can to prevent Hart from experiencing pain. That, and I'll add this in answer, that in fact that Jefferson feels that he has to have a debate between these two. He can't, you said this prior to our company, he can't just tell her, hey, I have these feelings for you, Maria. I wish you weren't married. I wish you'd come and visit me. I love you. He's got to have a debate. Should I love you? Should I not? Less filling tastes great. Does that answer the question?
That is, if he only knew that's such a turnoff to a woman. If you see a man struggling between should I do this, should I not, it's that in itself is a turnoff.
Oh, absolutely.
But he didn't. I don't think he had the social skills to realize.
No, he was a complete buffoon.
Yeah.
He was clumsy. If you read my book, Thomas Jefferson, Psychobiography of American Life, it's the most expensive thing on the planet. It's a great book. I don't have a copy. I talk about that. He was a complete clown when it came to women. He was tripping on 2 left feet when it came to dancing, and he just was not polished at all. He was petrified of women, I think, in terms of the opposite sex.
Oh, so question number 5. I think I know the answer to this. Which one wins, his head or his heart?
Well, then you answer that.
His head.
No, absolutely not his heart.
His heart? What? Well, he didn't end up with her, though.
That's not what happens. Asking who won the debate in the letter.
Oh, okay. Well, I was.
So at the end of the letter, Hart has this. Head just gives this enormously long admonition. I don't know how many in my book. I tell you how many words, and then Hart comes back with this longer speech and just drowns out Head.
Oh, okay. So in the letter, his heart wins.
Absolutely.
So our next episode, are we going to discuss where that?
Yes. We'll talk about the rest of the relationship. I can say, so Hart wins. Now, scholars who read this are divided. Some say Head wins, some say Hart wins. Okay. And I really don't care what they think. They're just wrong if you don't think Hart wins this. You got your head up your rear. Let me, if you can bring up the screen, full screen, so I can show a few things.
Which one?
Full screen with both of us.
Oh, with both of us. Okay. Okay, there you go.
I talk about in this book, I don't know if readers can
Thomas
see that.
Jefferson in Paris, the ministry of a Virginian looker-on.
That I talk about his relationship with Maria Cosway there while he's in Paris. And I do a little bit in this one, Thomas Jefferson, taste in the fine arts. I do have, I can let readers know I have copies that I could sign and available if you're interested, and you can get in touch with me.
Oh, and that's, I'll put that information up. You can contact Dr. Holowchak at mholowchak@hotmail.com. Do you still have your Facebook page?
Yeah, I do. I'm thinking of not having it because, I've been warned twice for putting up obscene posts, whatever that. I have no clue what they're objecting to, but I'm so tired of the Facebook secret police.
And it's it's ramping back up again. So but
no matter what you post, they're all looking at you with the squinting eye that somehow you're a communist, trying to overthrow the government, or you're not trying to whatever you're trying to do, and post something on Thomas Jefferson and that they see you as a member of the Chinese government or something.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. We love our founders, so we're bad. mholowchak at hotmail.com for an autographed copy. I just, I, I guess I'm gonna have to wait till retirement to read all of your books. I don't know. I thought
I'll have
once I
to
was done
wait.
with school, I said, oh, now I can just sit and read. And that's what I would love. I would love nothing more but to have like 4 hours a day to read.
Well, life gets in the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
This
It
was
sure.
fun, wasn't it? I mean, and
Yes,
next
it
one's going to
was.
be.
And if you liked it, please like and share with your friends. Subscribe to our channel so you know every time we upload videos. We're going to branch out and do some other stuff too, aren't we? Because I'd like to talk about the work you're doing. I just find it so interesting.
We can. I mean, you know, I want to add that what we're trying to do here. I mean, there are a number of Facebook posts and stuff that talk about Thomas Jefferson, and you know, they're rather dilettantish. You have an opportunity here to interface with someone who's published 23 books on Jefferson, more coming. I've been called one of the foremost, if not the foremost, Jefferson scholar in the world. So we're trying to give you great insight. We're appealing to someone who has knowledge of Thomas Jefferson and interest, but really wants to penetrate by, say, looking at one particular work and seeing stuff in that work that other scholars have missed.
Right.
And that's no small beer at the end of the day. So this is pretty good stuff. So we have what, a couple minutes left for the teaser.
146.
We're going to penetrate further into, I'll give next week, we'll look at another letter between the two later in life. And there are quite a few, here's one book here by a friend of mine, Kaminsky, Jefferson and Loves, and he ends the book. It's the compilation of the letters with a bit of a text on it, and he ends the letters, you know, pretty much after Jefferson's stay in France, as if nothing more really worth talking about happens. I think that's an enormous mistake. We'll see next time. Much is happening in later letters. There is a long part of time where they don't correspond, and a lot is going on. And I talk about that. It's really cool. Now, there's the possibility, at least I'll throw out for listeners and and viewers, of does Maria Cosway late in life, in her last 4 letters, 3 of them are, I wish you were here, Thomas. She's starting her own school for girls after going through all sorts of adventures, separating from her husband and coming back when he's dying. We'll talk about that. Does Maria lust for Thomas Jefferson? Or I don't think it's lust. Does she want him? Does she say, oh my goodness, I've wasted all this time. I could have been Thomas Jefferson. Is that what's going on? Pretty cool stuff for Valentine's Day, right?
Yeah, yeah, that is. Oh, and then we have A World Without Jefferson, who's the historical